With a second straight road loss, this time to the Chicago Bears, the Seahawks dropped to 0-2 on the season, and in the eyes of the national media, things are looking bleak for Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson and co. Ouch. That wasn't pretty last night. The Seahawks' offensive woes were plain for all to see as Seattle fell 0-2 in the young season with a 24-17 defeat to the Chicago Bears at Soldier Field. Here's what the national media are saying about the Seahawks after that debacle. ESPN's Seth Walder rates Seahawks QB Russell Wilson's performance as one of the worst of all quarterbacks in Week 2 based on QB rating. The Bears came after Russell Wilson and the Seahawks quarterback paid for it. Most of his problems came before he threw the ball, though the pick six to Prince Amukamara certainly was an issue, too. Led by Khalil Mack, the Bears sacked Wilson 6 times in their win over the Seahawks Monday. QBR places some of the blame for sacks on the quarterback. Even more of a problem, Wilson fumbled on 2 of those 6 sacks. Wilson actually had the lowest raw QBR of the week, but because he was on the road and our model respects the Bears' defense, he moved up to 3rd worst in total QBR after opponent adjustments. CBS Sports' Will Brinson observes that while the Seahawks-Bears Monday Night Football game was closely matched and entertaining, both franchises are moving in opposite trajectories. Chicago is rising and Seattle is treading water, trying to find an identity in the post-Legion of Boom era. Seattle's been relegated to rebuilding on both sides of the ball, trying to reconfigure the roster around Wilson. There are plenty of players of interest for Seattle, but this is clearly a roster in flux. Will Disley is one of their top receivers, which we all saw coming after he recorded roughly 400 yards receiving in college. The offensive line is still a disaster. Wilson was under siege all day long, getting sacked 6 times and pressured a bunch more. The lack of weapons around him are clearly forcing him to press, and he's holding the ball too long. Brian Schottenheimer was trying to establish the run down 14 with less than 6 minutes left, and there might not be enough to really create a good offense, but if the goal is to be an old-school run team, things are going to get ugly. Defensively, the Seahawks can be better than people think. But they're still growing. And if they don't pile up any wins early on, and it is early and the Seahawks haven't even played at home, it won't matter how the group comes together down the stretch. Bleacher Report had the Seahawks sitting at no. 23 in its Week 2 power rankings, because this year's Seahawks are a bad team that can't get started. For the second week in a row, Russell Wilson was put in a position where he had to try to carry the team back all by himself. For the second time he failed, in large part because for the second week in a row the Seahawks allowed half a dozen sacks. There's no getting around it. Seattle's offensive line is god-awful. When Wilson wasn't flat on his back or running for his life, he was pressing due to pressure. The result was 2 more turnovers, both backbreakers in the final quarter. The only thing saving Seattle from being a last-place team is the morass of horrible that is the Cardinals. NFL.com's Chris Wessling says the Seahawks' new offensive coordinator, Brian Schottenheimer, isn't doing much better than his predecessor. Schottenheimer is overseeing a toothless offensive attack that looks eerily similar to the 2017 version that got Darrell Bevell fired. Facing a string of desperate third and long wasteland situations, Seattle's first 21 plays generated a paltry 42 yards. Although Wilson has been sacked more times, 12, than any quarterback this season, the blame goes beyond the perennially beleaguered offensive line. Schottenheimer abandoned the running game for more than 20 minutes on the game clock. The receivers haven't been gaining separation and Wilson is constantly running into or away from pressure to compensate for an inner clock that no longer tells the correct time in the pocket. With a deficiency in surrounding talent over the past 2 years, Wilson's margin for error has vanished. For the majority of the evening, Seattle's best defense appeared to be waiting for Trubisky to make a game-changing mistake. The Washington Post's Mark Mask says the Seahawks' glory days are now behind them. The Seattle Seahawks bear no resemblance to the powerful, charismatic, star-laden team that made 5 straight playoff appearances, won a Super Bowl and came one ill-fated play on the 1-yard line from winning another. The Seahawks are rebuilding. There's no way around that. 2 games, and 2 losses, into their season of transition. They will spend this season vying with the San Francisco 49ers and Arizona Cardinals to be the division's second-best team, and it will be a distant second. Playoff contention seems like a long shot. Super Bowl talk is a fading memory. The season is not exactly a lost cause. Not yet, at least, but the franchise's first losing season since 2011 appears possible.